On October the 11th, the Syrian army and its allies continued to conduct military operations in Aleppo, with the most intense clashes were ongoing south of the Awiya neighborhood and in Sheikh Said, where the army stormed the Sheikh Said hill. Since October the 10th, up to 50 militants have been reported killed in the city. Turkish-backed militant groups that operate under the brand of the Free Syrian Army, supported by the Turkish armed forces, have seized more areas from ISIS in northern Aleppo. The Ankara-led forces took control of the villages of Yamul, Yarez, Shaikri, Albel, Baragita, and Tawakli near the strategic town of Azaz in the province of Aleppo. Now they are aiming to retake Soran. If this is done, the nearby town of Dabik will likely become the next target of Erdogan's Operation Euphrates Shield. The joint forces of Jabhat Fatah al-Sham, formerly Jabhat al-Nusra, Failaq al-Sham, Jabhat Ansar al-Din, and a number of less-known militant groups announced on Monday a fresh military operation called Ashura Battle in northern Latakia. The operation is set to be focused on the Syrian army's positions in the Kurdish mountains. Pro-militant sources have already claimed that the so-called moderate opposition captured some strategic points. Nonetheless, these reports still have to be confirmed. The operation is most likely aimed to draw the Syrian military attention from the city of Aleppo and northern Hama, where the militants' defenses are collapsing under the pressure of the pro-government forces. Russia is planning to expand its logistic facility in Tartus into a fully fledged permanent naval base. Till now, the facility in Tartus has been used to resupply Russian warships during missions in the Mediterranean and to deliver supplies to the Syrian government forces. We have prepared the paperwork, which is now being reviewed by other government agencies. The documents are pretty much ready, so we hope to submit them to you for ratification soon, Russia's Deputy Defense Minister General Nikolai Pankov told the Russian Senate on October the 10th. Last week, the Russians confirmed delivery of the S-300 anti-aircraft missile system to Tartus to protect the facility and the naval grouping from potential airstrikes and missile attacks. Meanwhile, reports have appeared that Russia is in talks with Egypt to lease military facilities, including an airbase in the town of Sidi Barani near the Mediterranean. If the agreement is made, the military base will be ready for use by 2019, according to the reports. And now, there are no doubts that Washington's actions to counter the Russian efforts in Syria have only pushed Moscow to expand its military presence in the Middle Eastern region.
And thank you for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Ephraim Graham. The personal attacks between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are not letting up after that secretly recorded Trump audio was released over the weekend. Trump is threatening to continue his attacks against Hillary and Bill Clinton if they release new recordings of him. Behind the scenes, he's facing fallout among supporters, and Clinton must defend a WikiLeaks release that reportedly shows her campaign's massive hit file on Bernie Sanders. Our Heather Sells has the latest.
The comments on the Trump tape forced the Republican National Committee chair to call committee members on Monday and reiterate his support for Trump. But Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, is cutting ties. He said Monday that he would no longer defend or campaign for Trump, although he didn't withdraw his endorsement. One well-known theologian, Wayne Grudem, pulled his support from Trump, but evangelical leaders Ralph Reed and Jerry Falwell Jr. are still backing him. They refuse to defend his remarks, but said his positions on critical issues like abortion Supreme Court nominees make him preferable to Hillary Clinton. On the campaign trail, Clinton is taking full advantage of the fallout.
But you know, it wasn't just this one video that was so disturbing, even shocking. We have seen this kind of behavior throughout this entire campaign.
Trump's running mate Mike Pence is speaking in Trump's defense.
It takes a big man to know when he's wrong and to admit it, and to have the humility to apologize and be transparent and be vulnerable with people.
Trump, meanwhile, says he'll continue to attack Clinton if any more recordings are released.
If they want to release more tapes saying inappropriate things, we'll continue to talk about Bill and Hillary Clinton doing inappropriate things. There are so many of them.
Clinton is also working to downplay a new WikiLeaks email release. The 70-page document shows a hits file against Bernie Sanders from last fall, questioning his progressive bona fides. The Clinton campaign is blaming the release on Russian President Vladimir Putin. The tape has apparently hurt Trump in the polls, but there haven't been any polls yet after his strong showing in Sunday night's debate. And with one final debate left, both Trump and Clinton will be working to win over voters while focusing on the key battleground states that will decide the White House in the Electoral College. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Donald Trump's running mate Mike Pence explained that his faith helps him to keep standing by Trump. He noted that Trump has apologized, but he also explained it is more than that, saying, quote, "We all fall short of the glory of God. And the other part of my faith is I believe in grace. I've received it. I believe in it. I believe in forgiveness." And Jerry Falwell Jr. explained his continued support, saying, "We're never going to have a perfect candidate until Jesus Christ reigns forever on the throne." Families are still being evacuated after Hurricane Matthew tore through the Carolinas and Georgia, leaving 10 people dead and many homeless. The danger there is still ongoing. 1,500 people had to be rescued Monday in North Carolina when a dam suddenly broke. Governor Pat McCrory addressed the situation.
We do have people on the roofs as we speak, and we have a lot of helicopters and boats that have been deployed that are at this point in time rescuing them.
Operation Blessing is also there helping people in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They're working alongside Governor McCrory and pastors in the community.
Operation Blessing is here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We've been coordinating with local emergency management and pastors, and we spent the evening going door to door, checking on families, loving on them, and letting them know that volunteers will be here to help them starting tomorrow morning.
In this upcoming election, minority voters may make the difference between victory and defeat. That's why both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are wooing blacks and Hispanics. But another group of minority voters feel they're being ignored by the candidates, and their numbers are growing. Mung-Fai Lee has a report about how Asian Americans could make a difference this year, especially in the swing states.
As Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton enter the final stages of their presidential campaigns, there's one voting bloc that's getting little attention. Asian Americans are growing in numbers and influence.
Whoever the next U.S. president is important to us too. We want our voices to be heard. This nation needs the right leader to become better and stronger.
In this viral video, a Japanese girl shows how she's decorated her entire bedroom in Trump campaign paraphernalia. Many Asians also are demonstrating their presidential choices on social media platforms, like these Chinese Americans in Los Angeles. They've launched an online campaign supporting Donald Trump. The social media engagement is helping the Asian community understand the candidates' positions on the issues.
Well, again, I believe that he has been a very successful businessman. He knows how to make money. He knows how to run a business. And I believe right now, currently, the United States needs somebody who has that kind of experience to lead us.
Some Asian voters we talked to believe Hillary Clinton can bring positive change to the nation.
I agree more with her policies, domestic and international-wise, versus Donald Trump.
In the last 10 years, Asian Americans have increasingly supported more Democratic candidates than Republicans. Asian Americans actively participated in the 2008 U.S. presidential election. 67% voted for Barack Obama, 33% for John McCain. 3.9 million Asians voted in 2012. 74% chose to re-elect the president. The big question this time, will Hillary Clinton receive the same percentage of support as Obama did 4 years ago? Asian American voters could make a difference in 3 key swing states. In Virginia and Nevada, where the Asian population is as high as 10%. And also in Colorado, where they're as much as 5%. The candidates' discussion of China and trade may lead more Chinese Americans to cast their votes in this election. Beijing economics professor Dr. Lin Hongyu says this election could change the U.S.-China relationship.
Regardless of who the next president will be, I hope the new leader will still value the meaningful contribution China brings to the United States, as well as to the global economy.
Although it is still early to find out who the next U.S. president will be, Asian voters are confident some of the current candidates could bring healthy change to the nation. And like most Americans, domestic issues may be the primary concern. They want a new president who will not only create more jobs for Americans, but will acknowledge the Asian community's contribution in shaping the nation's future. For CBN News, I'm Mengfei Li.
A new attempt is underway to revise Jewish history. That's what art historian Victoria Coates claims the UN and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City are doing. In an op-ed published in the Wall Street Journal, she calls out a UN resolution and Met Art exhibit that denies Israel's exclusive claim to Jerusalem. The exhibit instead claiming the holy city belongs to Muslims, Christians, and Jews equally. And she says the UN will launch a more aggressive approach Thursday to define Jerusalem as a global city. Coates calls these claims a movement to delegitimize Israel's claim to the land. Coming up, the new wave of young Americans involved in politics. See how millennials are using social media and other digital tools to make their voices heard in government. The youth vote isn't known for actually making it to the polls to vote. Is that because of complacency, or could it be millennials don't feel there's anyone running for office who looks like them, sounds like them, or thinks like them? As Caitlin Burke shows us, now there's a wave coming that could change all of that.
Young Americans will eventually pay for the decisions made by today's leaders. That reality is serving as a wake-up call for this voting bloc to change course and get involved in the political process.
We have something very, very powerful. We have the largest generation on this planet. 80 million right here in America, 1 billion on the planet. And we are one of the most untapped sleeping giants.
Action for America, a political advocacy group, wants to reinvigorate government by identifying young leaders.
What if we could turn this broken system, if we can change the players, change the leaders, and change the people that support them? That is a solution to politics. That's how we fix it. And this generation is just uniquely positioned to actually do that.
To encourage them to make that leap and run for office, Action for America has launched Awaken 100.
It's time that we say, you know what, maybe we represent ourselves. What if we found someone that really inspired us, that looked like us, that sounded like us, that thought like us, and we actually supported that person? That's representation at its finest. That's what our democracy is designed to do.
The concept of millennials getting involved in politics is one that's spreading quickly across the country. Here in Anchorage, Alaska, an economic crisis has caused the upcoming generation to get involved and help reshape the state's future.
We have sort of an interesting situation where the people making a lot of the decisions, or they should be making those decisions, aren't going to be the ones most impacted by them. And this is something that really is going to affect people most of our generation.
Meet Drew, Ian, and Penny, members of a new volunteer group called Our Alaska. They use social media and other digital tools to teach their generation about balancing the state's budget, creating jobs, and working towards a better financial future.
It is the last thing that anybody wants to talk about. That's the key challenge that everybody's had, and it's what really informed our approach to try and do something that was funny and edgy and a little more attention grabbing than your conventional campaign.
Oh my! Oh, everything is not glorious. Oh, this economy is terrible. Oh no! Recession!
One benefit of running social media campaigns on platforms like Facebook and Twitter is that you can see in real time how your campaign is doing compared to others.
We watched how our campaign would progress against several other campaigns that were being led by nonprofits, business organizations, which had literally hundreds of times the amount of money we had. And in the social media realm, in terms of engagement, we crushed them all.
We've seen a really positive response from elected officials as well. The governor has met with our group several times. Folks in his administration, representatives and senators are interested in being involved and hearing what we have to say. Maybe they're intimidated. Maybe they think they should talk to us because otherwise we're going to run for their seats.
Jason Gren, an Our Alaska member, is doing just that. At 35 years old, he's running for State House against a much older incumbent.
I think young people right now, we have some experience, we have a different background or mindset, and we have a different vision for the future than maybe someone who is in the retirement age, or maybe might move out of Alaska because it's not as an ideal place anymore for them and their lifestyle. But for me, it's I have a family, I have kids. I speak for that voice. I speak for the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years.
We spent a few hours with Gren, who's combining traditional boots-on-the-ground campaigning with a targeted social media strategy. For example, more than 8,000 people viewed a quick Facebook Live video we did with Gren before he started knocking on doors.
And this is definitely the not-so-glamorous side of campaigning, right?
This is the hard work. This is the time of day. You're done with work, you're hungry, you're tired, you want to be home with your kids, you're resting, doing something. And you have to go walk for 2 hours and talk to people at their house, and hopefully they're nice, and hopefully they open the door and want to have a good conversation with you.
Knocking on doors helps Gren meet constituents, while social media allows them to follow along with his campaign.
You can kind of, update what you're doing, on a day-to-day basis. You kind of give people that personal insight to what you're doing, but also your views on certain topics. So I can talk to, moms I meet and dads I meet and neighbors, anyone on the street. I can tell them to, go to my Facebook page and you can see what I did yesterday and today.
There are plenty of excuses not to get involved with the political process. Busy lives, budding careers, and balancing work with family. Still, Gren and those involved with Our Alaska say they refuse to continue to go unrepresented and unheard. It's that spirit that Action for America hopes to capture and spread in order to change the future.
Sometimes we say we need to wait our turn in line. And I think the time for waiting is actually over. It's going to take, again, some real courage and some real bold folks to be the first ones on that line. And of course, you may lose, you may go through the ring of fire, you may get beat up a little bit, but that's what this revolution is going to take. And I think to have the support of millions of people behind you is going to take bold leaders to begin with. And that's what we're looking for.
Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Anchorage, Alaska.
Shia Muslims are mourning the martyrdom anniversary of Imam Hussein, the third Shia Imam. Mourners from Iran and Iraq gathered to observe the 9th day of the Islamic calendar month of Muharram. There have also been similar ceremonies in Afghanistan, England, the U.S., and in Pakistan. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has canceled his planned visit to France as tensions remain high between the two countries over Syria. The Kremlin said that Putin is ready for the visit whenever it is comfortable for the French president. French officials said that Putin postponed the visit after France insisted talks would be confined to Syria. An assault bomb attack has reportedly killed 10 people in a village near Syria's northern city of Manbij. Meanwhile, militant fire on a school in the southern city of Daraa left at least 5 children dead. Also, a mortar attack on Aleppo left several people dead and many more injured. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has strongly reacted to the Iraqi Prime Minister's call for Turkish forces to leave the country. Erdogan said that Haider al-Abadi must, quote, know his limits and that the Turkish army does not take orders from Iraq. Abadi says that Turkey is hindering the offensive to liberate the city of Mosul. The World Health Organization has confirmed 11 cases of cholera in the Yemeni capital Sana'a. The WHO said no deaths from the disease have been reported in Yemen. The body also added that more than 140 cases of severe diarrhea were admitted to hospitals, where they have tested negative for cholera. Gunmen in the Afghan capital Kabul have opened fire on a gathering of Shia Muslims during a Muharram morning ceremony. According to Afghan officials, at least 14 people lost their lives. There were also reports of 2 blasts at the site of the attack. Afghanistan has deployed hundreds of troops in the capital of the southern province of Helmand. The deployment of 300 commandos aims to push back militants from the strategic city of Lashkar-Gah. Afghan officials say the deployed security forces would soon clear the whole city from the Taliban. China has accused the United States of intervention in Asia amid rising territorial tensions between Beijing and Washington in the South China Sea. Chinese Defense Minister Chang Wangyuan said some countries seek absolute military superiority and want to improve their own security at the cost of other countries' security.
Donald Trump warned supporters in Pennsylvania that they have to guard against having the election stolen. Republican presidential nominee, also repeated his claim that the system is rigged. Repeated studies, however, have found no evidence of widespread voter fraud across the nation. A federal judge extended Florida's voter registration by 1 day. Democrats argued for the extension so that 1.5 million people who were told to evacuate from Hurricane Matthew will still have time to sign up. The United Nations is appealing for emergency hurricane relief after Hurricane Matthew. The hurricane killed hundreds in Haiti and left millions needing assistance. Officials in North Carolina now blame Hurricane Matthew for 11 deaths in that state. And President Obama has signed a disaster declaration for 10 North Carolina counties. Ross Simpson, The Associated Press, with AP News Minute.
The Russian General Staff claimed that the U.S. missile defense system posed a threat to free use of the space by any state. How dangerous is it, and is the U.S. really capable of interfering into space activity of any state? All the elements of the U.S. missile defense are designed not to only down ballistic missiles, they can also down satellites, as the range of the Standard Missile 3 reaches up to 1,500 kilometers. In case the U.S. decides to use elements of the missile defense as anti-satellite weapon against maneuvering targets which have ballistic trajectories, as well as those being in orbit, the missile may really be applied. Thus, given the fact that relations between the U.S. and Russia have significantly aggravated lately, and some hotheads politicians from the U.S. afford threats towards Russia during their speeches, the concern of our General Staff has grounds. Of course, we have developments which can oppose such equipment. First of all, these are missiles. We have operational tactical missiles as well as ballistic ones. In case the Americans keep insisting on their expansion, eastward march and threats towards Russia, the General Staff and the Defense Ministry will take adequate measures.
Former Vice President Al Gore is joining Hillary Clinton on the campaign trail. The Democratic presidential nominee is bringing in her husband's VP to help her appeal to young voters. She's hoping the longtime environmental activist will bring credibility to her climate change proposals. More than a dozen people are dead in Aleppo following airstrikes on the rebel-held city. Amateur video shows rescue volunteers, known as the White Helmets, rushing into the aftermath. It's the latest in fierce fighting as Syrian government forces try to recapture the city. Native Americans are calling for the arrest of a driver who plowed through protesters in Reno, Nevada. Video shows the crowd protesting against Columbus Day on Monday. The driver can be seen stopping and then driving through the crowd. Protesters say police should investigate it as a hate crime. The owner of an abnormally large pumpkin has an extra $11,000, thanks to winning a pumpkin weigh-off in Half Moon Bay, California. The pumpkin coming in at 1,910 pounds. Padmanandarama, The Associated Press, with AP News Minute.
The hot water in the kettle gives off water vapor to the air by rapid evaporation, just as rivers, lakes, and ponds give off water vapor to the air by slow evaporation. As the hot water-filled air hits the colder air near the ice tray, the water vapor turns into clouds of tiny water droplets floating in the air, condensation. When the air is quite cold and cannot hold any more water droplets, they collect together to form larger drops, as on the ice tray. And being too heavy to float in the air, They fall back to the earth as rain.
remnants of Hurricane Matthew and the storm's devastating impact on the south. While the winds and rain have diminished, a dire flooding emergency is playing out this morning. Thousands rescued in North Carolina, damage in the billions. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer is in hard-hit Rocky Mount. Miguel, good morning.
Lester, good morning. Matthew's path of destruction came well inland, swamping this area with more than a foot of water and hitting it with powerful winds. Today, homes are still underwater and some are lucky to be alive.
After a weekend of daring water rescues from the rooftops of homes and cars, men, women,
oh, come on, sweetie,
and children were pulled to safety by the thousands. It seems Matthew saved its devastating and deadliest punch for the end in the U.S., killing some 20 Americans, nearly half of those in North Carolina.
It was horrible.
Deborah Alves narrowly escaped the rising floodwaters.
We just took everything we could grab and left.
Her neighbors were rescued on top of their homes. At one point, a Category 5 hurricane, Matthew plowed through the Caribbean, killing hundreds in Haiti, now turning to their faith as they bury their dead. After barreling towards the U.S., the storm surge swamped oceanside communities in Florida. But over the weekend, Matthew was strong enough to waterlog homes 100 miles inland. Up to 1 million are still without power. Many are still under mandatory evacuations.
We were going to be out here for like another two weeks or so.
With the massive cleanup now underway, the damage in 4 states could top $6 billion. But the threat isn't over. Some swollen rivers could still rise 17 feet above flood stage. Matthew, a slow motion storm, but for some, it is still a slow motion disaster.
During the height of the storm in this area, we are told a woman clung to a tree for 3 hours before she was rescued. They are still looking for the missing, and authorities are also keeping a close eye on local rivers and dams, worried that those too could topple. Savannah, Lester, and Matt and Al.
All right, Miguel, thank you.
Yeah, and Al is here with more on the storm, and it really did pack a punch.
It certainly did. I mean, we're talking about, over the affected area, about 13.6 trillion gallons of rain. I mean, this was really unprecedented. Now, as you can see, the weather at least has cleared out, but the flood threat has not, unfortunately. As you take a look, say, for example, in Lumberton, the Lumberton River, crested Sunday at 24.4 feet. The record 20.5, it's still above flood stage, record flood stage, so it's going to take a while for that to go down. The Neuse River in Smithfield, they're right now above their record flood stage, a major flood stage at 20 feet. And at Rocky Mount, where we saw Miguel, 28.7 is the current river level. They're well above their record flood stage, so that's going to take a little while for that to finally start to recede. The good news is, for the next foreseeable number of days, they've got good weather. That's good news. Unseasonably warm weather will start to slowly make its way to the east.